A new image to spur the waves of protesters who continue to flood Iran's streets. A municipal building burning into the night in Karaj, just outside Tehran. The regime blames it, and much more, on dangerous rioters. After 2 days of near total internet shutdown, meaning many of these images of last night's nationwide protests have only been gradually emerging, more threats of action today against the protesters. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is saying its red line is safeguarding the achievements of the revolution and the country's security. The senior advisor to the Supreme Leader, Ali Larijani, on state media promising a tough crackdown on what he called armed terrorist groups seeking civil war and foreign intervention. There are fears that the crackdown is already underway. Widely shared images said to be from Kazirun in the south, showing security forces opening fire on the streets. These images, shared by Norway-based Iran Human Rights, are said to show gunfire during a protest in the city of Tabriz. So far, rights groups have put the death toll from 2 weeks of protests in the dozens, but multiple sources, impossible yet to confirm, suggest it may now be in the hundreds, with reports of hospitals overwhelmed. The videos emerging, though, some through the Starlink satellite network, suggest the numbers of protesters swelled again last night. Symbols of the regime defaced, Iran's pre-revolutionary flag held high. Not just in Iran. In London this afternoon, a demonstration on the street outside the Iranian embassy. And not just on the street. One protester evading police to scale the embassy itself and bring down the flag of the Islamic Republic. A symbolic reclaiming of Iranian territory for the flag of the lion and the sun.
Iran has been suppressed for 47 years. Through all these uprisings, this is the first time that all have the same united voice. And it's the right time for mullahs to leave.
My parents are stuck in Iran right now. They were meant to come back in a couple days. Flights have been cancelled and there's internet blackouts. Phone lines have been cut, even domestically. I have no way of reaching my own parents because of this oppressive and brutal regime.
I'm 100% sure they are done. And we are going to be free, and we're going to go back to our country.
Much talk here of how the son of the late Shah, for so long a divisive figure among regime opponents, has instead become a unifying one. Today, Reza Pahlavi from his home in the US calling on protesters to come to the streets earlier in the evening to seize and hold city centres tonight and tomorrow. For a third night running, those calls appear to have been answered. But as resilient as these protests have been, they aren't at least yet a cohesive opposition. The regime remains in place, its Revolutionary Guard vowing to defend it. Between the extremes of total collapse and total repression, there are many ways yet this might end.
Harry Fawcett reporting. Well, earlier I spoke to Nega Mortazawi, an Iranian-American political analyst and senior fellow at the Center for International Policy. I started by asking her if she thought that the brutality of the Iranian security forces would manage to silence the protests.
It's hard to tell. We really don't know where that balance is. What we have seen in the past, if we want to look at precedent, is that the state is very powerful. They have a monopoly on arms, on violence, and they have been willing, capable and willing to use utmost deadly violence to kill people, arrest thousands of people, potentially put them on death row, execute protesters in the past, and to crack down at whatever cost, essentially with an iron fist. Is that going to work this time? I'm not sure, because the protests are also spreading and they may reach that tipping point where that balance of power can change.
So, Nigel, for anyone out there who thinks that there could be a repeat of what we saw with the Assad regime, that the Ayatollahs will suddenly disappear, basically, is that a pipe dream?
I don't want to rule out any scenarios because it's very volatile and it's changing literally by the day. But we also, when we're trying to compare, we shouldn't forget the Assad regime fall came out of almost a decade of civil war in that country. That central government, the Assad government, yes, was in power, but he had lost control of many parts of the country. There was a very active rebel armed movement resistance against him. Now, can that happen in Iran overnight? I think it's hard to see. The central government has a much tighter grip on the country and on violence and on power. But I also don't want to rule out anything.
In terms of the possible intervention of Donald Trump, which is something that he's threatened, of course, if things get even more violent, do you think that would unleash chaos in the country? Could that be the trigger for genuine regime change? Or, is it just more, brutality, this time from the Americans, without any change at all?
Because the U.S. is the most powerful and also most unpredictable actor here. Anything from nothing to the maximum can be the response of the U.S., and that can dramatically change the formulation. If that doesn't happen, I think with the protests on the ground currently, what we're seeing, we're not close to that tipping point yet. And also with only Israeli bombardment or more Israeli attack, I don't think we're going to see revolutionary change, because the Iranians are also very prepared to hit back at Israel if that attack comes, and it's going to be even more severe than last time in June.
Nigar, we've heard quite a lot of talk in recent days about the possible return of the late Shah's son, Reza Pahlavi, who of course lives in exile here in Washington. How likely is that, and what role is he playing at the moment?
There's definitely a base of support, both inside the country and also in the diaspora. I don't know how strong that is, if that's an actual movement that can topple the regime on its own and really restore the monarchy organically. I don't see that kind of power within that movement from these slogans. But if there's a foreign intervention, because we know the Israelis have been trying to invest on Reza Pahlavi as an alternative, or if the US takes him seriously, then that's a different story. And that would be sort of a reinstating with foreign powers, foreign intervention, with hard force. And that's just going to be a different formula.
And of course, the regime has shut down the internet. I think it's very difficult to get phone lines out of Iran and into Iran. How are people communicating with each other?
It's been absolutely difficult. In the past, when there was an internet shutdown, you could at least reach people on a regular landline. Now, even those landlines are not working. It's been 2 days that we've been almost cut off from the country, from loved ones. Only very small stream of information is coming from people who have rare access through Starlink or other very, very inaccessible tools. So it's very difficult to also paint a picture of what's going on, but this is also a sign that the state wants to use very serious crackdown and also tries to prevent more mobilizing.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Nigar Mohtazari, thank you very much indeed for those insights.
Thanks for having me.